The room smelled like fresh flowers and vanilla candles. Pink and white balloons hung from the ceiling, and a banner that read, "Welcome baby Amelia," stretched across the living room wall. Friends and family laughed softly, passing around tiny cupcakes and sparkling juice. Amelia sat in the center of it all, cradling her growing belly, trying to smile, trying to feel happy. She had imagined this day countless times in her mind, each version perfect, each version filled with love and attention. She had imagined her mother beaming proudly at her, praising her for carrying a new life, telling her how proud she was. But that image shattered the moment. Her mother stepped forward with an envelope in hand. The room fell slightly quieter as all eyes shifted to Amelia's mother. She was elegant as always, her voice soft but commanding. Amelia braced herself for the words of affirmation, for the recognition she thought she deserved on her special day. But then her mother turned toward Lydia, Amelia's older sister, standing beside her with a polite smile. Confusion flashed across Amelia's face, then disbelief. Her mother's eyes twinkled as she held up the envelope. "I want to give you something very special," she said, her voice warm and deliberate. "A fully paid Europe honeymoon. $32,000, all expenses covered." Applause erupted. Shocked gasps filled the room. Cameras clicked. Lydia's smile widened as she accepted the envelope, her hands trembling slightly but hiding her excitement. Everyone cooed and congratulated her, and Amelia's chest tightened with a strange mixture of hurt and anger. It wasn't her name being celebrated. It wasn't her achievement being recognized. The room had turned into a stage for her sister, and she was only an audience member. Amelia's mind raced. She had spent months planning this shower, every detail carefully selected. She had baked cupcakes herself, sent personalized invitations, coordinated the decorations. Yet her mother had made the focus of the celebration entirely about Lydia. She remembered every past moment, where her mother had subtly, or not so subtly, shown favor toward her sister. School awards, job promotions, birthdays. Amelia had learned to brush it off, to smile politely, to congratulate Lydia without letting herself feel anything. But now, standing there at her own baby shower, watching the spotlight shine on her sister, all the old feelings surged back like a tidal wave. She felt small, invisible, erased. Lydia looked at her with a hint of guilt, maybe worry, but it was fleeting. Her eyes said, "I didn't ask for this, but I won't deny it." Amelia felt the sting of betrayal twist deeper. She wanted to speak, to say something, anything, to reclaim some piece of the moment for herself. But the words wouldn't come. The room was full of people, friends, family, distant relatives, everyone smiling, everyone celebrating. Her voice would only break. Instead, she forced a polite smile, clapped for her sister, and felt the bitterness settle like a stone in her chest. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to cry. She wanted to scream. She wanted to make them see what they had done. But she didn't. Not yet. She held her composure, and everyone thought she was fine. Later, as people mingled and unwrapped gifts, Amelia found a quiet corner and leaned against the wall. She tried to focus on the soft pink and white decorations, on the pastel tablecloths, on the cupcakes with tiny footprints piped in icing. But every detail only reminded her of what had been stolen. The attention, the love, the celebration that should have been about her. Her mother kept glancing at Lydia with pride, laughing at Lydia's jokes, asking questions about the honeymoon plans. It was as if Amelia wasn't there at all, as if she were invisible. She had imagined her mother's eyes on her, full of warmth and admiration. Instead, they were elsewhere, fixed on her sister, leaving Amelia to grapple with the painful truth. Favoritism was real, deliberate, and now publicly displayed. Amelia's mind replayed every similar moment from the past. The high school graduation, when her mother commented on Lydia's achievements but barely noticed hers. The first job she had gotten, the one she had worked tirelessly for, barely acknowledged by her mother while Lydia's accomplishments were lauded. Every slight, every overlooked success, every moment where her feelings were minimized came rushing back. It all converged into a single, undeniable realization. She had been invisible in her mother's eyes for as long as she could remember. And this extravagant honeymoon gift at her baby shower was the culmination of that disregard. It wasn't just favoritism. It was a public display of hierarchy, a statement that Lydia mattered more, that Amelia's accomplishments and milestones were secondary, almost irrelevant. Her hands trembled slightly as she sipped her juice. She tried to steady herself, to focus on the guests who had come to celebrate her. Some offered words of comfort, others shared smiles, but Amelia felt detached. The warmth she had hoped to feel on this day was replaced by a cold, gnawing ache of betrayal. She had trusted that this day would be different. She had trusted that her mother would see her, that her joy would matter. And now, the truth was undeniable. Her mother had chosen her sister. Again. Amelia's gaze drifted to Lydia, who was chatting animatedly with a group of friends. Lydia's laugh, once comforting, now sounded like mockery in Amelia's ears. Not intentionally cruel, Amelia knew, but it didn't matter. The effect was the same. Her sister, who had always seemed charming and considerate, was now unwittingly complicit in her humiliation. She accepted the gift with grace, oblivious to the storm that had been brewing inside her sister for years. A storm that now threatened to spill over. Amelia's emotions twisted in unexpected ways. There was hurt. Yes, but there was also a spark, something dangerous. A sense that this wrong needed acknowledgement, that someone had to see how deep the pain ran. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Photos were taken, gifts were opened, people chatted and laughed. Amelia moved through it like a ghost, present in body but distant in mind. She smiled when necessary, nodded politely, even helped her friends carry things. But internally, she was consumed by a growing sense of injustice. By the time the party ended and the last guests had departed, Amelia felt drained, not from celebration, but from the emotional toll of being overlooked and undervalued. Alone in her nursery, she sat on the rocking chair, staring at the baby clothes neatly folded in drawers, the tiny blankets stacked carefully, the soft sunlight streaming through the window. Everything felt like it should have been hers to celebrate. Yet the day had been stolen, her joy redirected to someone else, her special moment overshadowed by favoritism and neglect. As she rocked slowly, a quiet determination began to form. She realized she could not change her mother or her sister. Not tonight, not ever. But she could change herself. She could reclaim her worth, her power, her sense of dignity. And though the thought felt foreign, almost forbidden, a single idea planted itself in her mind. She would make sure they understood, one way or another, the depth of the hurt they had caused. She didn't know how yet. She didn't know when. But the desire for recognition, for justice, for some form of reckoning, burned like a small, relentless fire inside her. The baby shower had been a betrayal. Yes, but it had also lit a spark that could not be extinguished. She would not remain invisible. She would not allow her pain to be ignored. Days passed after the baby shower, but the wound in Amelia's heart refused to heal. She went through her routine doctor's visits, prenatal vitamins, preparing the nursery, but every small task was shadowed by that moment of betrayal. Her mother's praise for Lydia replayed in her mind, each word twisting in her chest like a knife. Amelia found herself drifting in and out of focus, barely able to enjoy the preparations for her baby. Her apartment, once a place of excitement, now felt like a cage. Every pink decoration reminded her of what had been stolen. Every gift that mentioned Lydia felt like a public display of favoritism. She tried to bury the anger, to tell herself it didn't matter. But it did. It mattered more than she could admit. She began to watch Lydia online, scrolling through social media posts of honeymoon plans, expensive hotels, and dream vacations. Each photo was a reminder of what her mother valued. Not her happiness, not her accomplishments, not the life she was building, but her sister's. Lydia didn't flaunt the gift intentionally. She didn't see the harm. She was simply living in the spotlight her mother had cast on her. But Amelia saw it differently. She felt erased, unseen, dismissed. The jealousy simmered into something sharper, something darker. Amelia wanted acknowledgement, validation, and above all, recognition that she mattered too. She didn't just want to be heard. She wanted them to feel the weight of their actions. At first, Amelia's thoughts were chaotic. She imagined confrontations that went poorly. She saw herself yelling, crying, accusing, and yet nothing changed. She realized revenge wouldn't be simple. It wouldn't be a single confrontation or an angry message. It had to be precise, calculated, a way to make them recognize the wrong without losing herself in the process. She began to consider every detail: timing, audience, method. She could expose favoritism publicly, or find a way to show how deeply she had been hurt. Each thought carried both thrill and fear. She didn't want to hurt Lydia. She loved her sister, but she wanted her mother to understand the pain her actions caused. Amelia wrestled with the morality of it. Was it right to plan a kind of revenge? Or would it only make things worse? She didn't know yet. The fire inside her would not be ignored. Amelia's partner, Daniel, noticed the change in her. He tried to comfort her, suggesting distractions, gentle walks, or even talking through her feelings. But Amelia couldn't just talk. Words weren't enough. The betrayal was too deep, the humiliation too public. She found herself pacing the apartment at night, imagining scenarios where she could reclaim some of the dignity stolen from her. Some nights, she thought of small acts of subtle revenge, an anonymous note, a careful comment in front of family, exposing the favoritism without directly confronting anyone. Other nights, she imagined confronting her mother, telling her exactly what she had done, how it made her feel invisible. Each scenario felt possible, yet terrifying. She knew one misstep could turn her carefully controlled emotions into chaos. Amelia's thoughts turned inward. She questioned her own worth. Did she deserve better treatment? Was it her fault that her mother overlooked her achievements? Doubts gnawed at her, yet they were accompanied by a growing awareness. Her worth wasn't determined by anyone else, not her mother, not her sister. That realization gave her a strange clarity. Revenge, she knew, wasn't just about punishing her mother or making Lydia feel guilty. It was about reclaiming control. It was about asserting that she mattered, that her emotions were valid, and that she could act rather than simply suffer. The desire to make them see the harm they caused became intertwined with the need to prove to herself that she could rise above it. Amelia began keeping a journal, not just to write down feelings, but to strategize. She listed every moment of favoritism she could remember, every slight, every overlooked success. She wrote about how each incident had made her feel, and she catalogued possible ways to confront the situation. Each entry made her heart pound. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in weeks. The hurt was still there, yes, but now it had a purpose. It became fuel, not poison. She visualized moments where she could speak and be heard, where her mother would realize the depth of her neglect, where Lydia might understand the invisible pain. Each scenario was tested in her mind, rolled over and over until it felt almost real. Amelia's obsession grew, but it was controlled. She had decided she would act carefully, not recklessly. She would not allow anger to cloud her judgment. Not yet. The closer Lydia's honeymoon approached, the more Amelia felt the pressure of time. She imagined sending a carefully worded note before her sister left, or perhaps arranging a gathering where the truth could be revealed indirectly. She also considered doing nothing, letting the moment pass while she focused on her own life. Both choices scared her. Acting could lead to confrontation, tears, or worse, family drama that could fracture bonds permanently. Not acting could leave her feeling powerless, trapped by the same neglect that had caused her pain in the first place. She struggled to sleep, her mind restless, running through pros and cons like an endless cycle. She wanted clarity, a single path that would lead to justice without destruction. But clarity was elusive. Amelia's perspective shifted subtly over the weeks. She began observing her mother more closely, noticing patterns, subtle judgments, and unconscious favoritism. She realized her mother didn't see herself as cruel or unfair. In her mother's eyes, Lydia had earned the reward, and Amelia was simply someone who had always been independent enough to succeed without needing recognition. That didn't make it fair, but it explained the mindset. Understanding this added complexity to Amelia's plans. She wasn't just fighting the overt act of favoritism. She was grappling with deep-seated perceptions, habits, and attitudes that were unlikely to change. Amelia realized that any form of revenge had to account for these subtleties. It had to be measured, precise, and reflective, not impulsive or emotional. By the time Lydia's flight approached, Amelia felt both exhaustion and anticipation. She had run through every scenario in her mind countless times. She had rehearsed her words, imagined the emotional impact, and calculated the timing. She was ready to act, or at least she thought she was. Yet a new feeling had begun to emerge alongside the desire for revenge. Uncertainty. Could she really do it? Could she expose her mother and sister without creating irreparable damage? Could she find a path where she reclaimed her dignity without losing herself in anger? This uncertainty was frightening, but it also strengthened her resolve. She realized the decision wasn't just about making them feel guilt. It was about reclaiming herself, about asserting control over her emotions and her life. Amelia's inner turmoil reached a peak the night before Lydia's departure. She sat on the couch, journal open, heart racing. Every thought felt sharp, every emotion amplified. She reviewed the moments of betrayal one last time, asking herself what she truly wanted. Was it revenge? Recognition? Healing? She realized it was all of these things tangled together. She wanted to be seen, to be acknowledged, to assert that she mattered. But she also wanted to protect her own peace. She didn't want to be consumed by anger or resentment. The line between justice and vengeance blurred. And Amelia realized that whatever she chose to do next would shape not only her relationship with her family, but also her own emotional future. As she closed her journal, a sense of calm settled over her, mixed with anticipation. The decision wasn't made yet, but the fire inside her had found focus. The next day, Lydia would leave for Europe, and Amelia would finally have to confront her choices. Every option carried risk. Every path had consequences. Amelia understood that the moment of action was coming, and she could no longer postpone it. She felt alive in a way she hadn't before. The pain of betrayal was still present, but now it was a tool, a guide, a motivator. Revenge was no longer just a desire, it was a possibility, a challenge, and a test of her own strength. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting soft light across Amelia's living room. Today was the day Lydia was leaving for Europe. The flight, the hotels, the tours, it all felt unreal. Amelia had watched the preparations unfold. Online for weeks, the itinerary neatly posted on social media. Every detail of her sister's dream honeymoon had been meticulously shared, a constant reminder of her mother's favoritism. Amelia sat quietly on the couch, heart pounding, hands gripping a single envelope she had kept hidden for days. Inside it was the culmination of her thoughts, her emotions, her carefully measured words. She had written everything she had felt. For years, the sting of favoritism, the neglect, the invisible weight of being second to Lydia. She had poured every hurt, every resentment, every longing into that letter. Now she had to decide if she would give it, send it, or leave it behind. The decision felt heavier than any she had faced before. Her mind raced. If she delivered the letter, it could shatter relationships, humiliate Lydia, or make her mother feel guilty beyond repair. Yet doing nothing felt equally unbearable. To stay silent would be to accept the erasure, the dismissal, the repeated pattern that had haunted her since childhood. She could imagine standing in front of her mother and sister, watching their faces change as they read her words. She could imagine the tears, the guilt, the apologies, maybe even the anger. But she could also imagine the backlash, the denial, the blame shifted onto her. Each possibility looped in her mind, a tight spiral she couldn't escape. Amelia's palms were sweaty, heart hammering, mind torn between justice and self-preservation. She had spent weeks planning, rehearsing, strategizing, and now the moment of truth had arrived. It was time to act or step away forever. Amelia's thoughts turned inward. She asked herself what she truly wanted. Was it revenge? A way to make them feel the pain she had felt? Or was it acknowledgement, recognition, a reclaiming of her own worth? She realized the lines were blurred. What she truly craved was to be seen, to have her emotions validated, to assert that she mattered, not just in theory, but in action. And yet, revenge carried a cost. It could leave her hollow, trapped in anger, consumed by resentment instead of freed by it. The fire inside her burned hotter as she weighed the options. She could make them understand. Yes, but at what cost to herself? Could the act of exposing the truth bring her the peace she sought? Or would it trap her in the same cycle of pain she had endured for so long? She rose from the couch, pacing the room. The letter felt heavier in her hand with each step, a tangible weight of her years of hurt. She imagined walking up to her mother's door, knocking, handing it over and watching their reactions unfold. She imagined the relief, the confrontation, the raw honesty. Every scenario was vivid, almost cinematic. And yet the fear persisted. The fear of causing irreparable damage, of losing connections she still valued despite the hurt. She realized that revenge wasn't just about others. It was about her, about maintaining control over herself and her emotions. She needed clarity, a path that allowed her to assert her worth without destroying the fragile ties that remained. Amelia thought of Lydia. Her sister hadn't meant to hurt her. She realized, yet the impact had been devastating. Lydia had grown, up in the same household, shaped by the same parent, and had internalized the favoritism in ways Amelia hadn't. Her sister's happiness wasn't a betrayal in itself. It was the reflection of a system they both navigated differently. This awareness didn't erase the pain, but it added a layer of complexity. Amelia began to see that targeting Lydia would not deliver the justice she sought. It might bring momentary satisfaction, but it could also inflict unintended harm. Her anger was aimed not at her sister, but at the structures that had consistently dismissed her. And if she wanted real power, it had to come from reclaiming herself, not punishing others. Envelope felt like a physical representation of the storm inside her. Amelia clutched it, breath shallow, heart racing. She considered different outcomes, sending it anonymously, leaving it somewhere for them to find, reading it aloud herself, or simply destroying it. Every option carried a mix of risk and relief. She walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street. The sky was clear, the air still. She imagined herself as a child, overlooked, craving approval, trying to earn recognition that never came. The years of accumulation, the subtle messages of preference, the constant comparison to Lydia, all of it culminated in this moment. And now, Amelia realized, she held the power to decide the final act. The outcome would not be controlled by her mother or sister, but by her. Amelia sat back down, breathing deeply. The fire inside her had calmed slightly, replaced by a strange clarity. She realized that revenge, no matter how satisfying it seemed in theory, wouldn't erase the hurt. It might give her a momentary sense of triumph, but it could also leave her bitter, consumed, and trapped in the cycle she had fought so hard to escape. The true victory, she understood, lay not in making them feel guilty, but in reclaiming herself. It lay in choosing her peace over the need for retribution. The envelope no longer felt like a weapon. It was a test of her resolve, a gauge of her strength. And in that moment, Amelia recognized that strength wasn't found in vengeance. It was found in self-mastery. Hours passed. Amelia imagined Lydia leaving, boarding the plane, taking off into the sky, unaware of the storm her presence had stirred. She imagined her mother preparing for the trip, oblivious to the emotional weight of their choices. And Amelia realized she didn't need to force their understanding. She didn't need to demand apologies or acknowledgement. She had the power to choose her next step, her emotional path, her reaction. That power was hers alone. The envelope, once a symbol of confrontation, became a symbol of restraint. It represented the life she could choose, free from the chains of past neglect and favoritism. She understood that walking away, letting go, and prioritizing her own healing was not weakness. It was the ultimate assertion of control. Finally, Amelia rose, holding the envelope loosely. She walked to the trash can, paused and took a deep breath. The temptation to act, to deliver it, to confront, was strong. But the clarity remained. She opened the trash can and let the envelope fall in. The paper crumpled, a tangible release of the burden she had carried for years. She didn't need to make them feel guilt to reclaim her worth. She didn't need to punish them to assert her dignity. The act of letting go, of choosing herself, was the ultimate form of revenge, not against them, but against the cycle of pain that had defined her life for so long. Amelia felt a strange calm settle over her as she sat back on the couch. Storm inside her had not vanished, but it had shifted. It was no longer a force of destruction, but a guide, a source of strength. She realized she could focus on her baby, on her partner, on the life she was building. She could invest in herself, in her own happiness, in the relationships that truly mattered. The hurt would always remain a part of her, but it would no longer control her actions. She had chosen peace over retribution, and in doing so, she had claimed something far more valuable than revenge. Freedom. Later that evening, Amelia watched the sunset from her window. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, soft and serene. She imagined Lydia halfway across the world, exploring streets Amelia would not see, staying in hotels she had only imagined. And yet, Amelia no longer felt the sting. She had chosen her path, defined her own worth, and refused to let past betrayals dictate her future. For the first time in years, she felt whole, unburdened, empowered. The decision to let go had not been easy, but it had been necessary. She had learned that revenge could never provide healing. Only reclaiming herself could Amelia turn to. Her nursery, her eyes lingering on the tiny clothes, the neatly stacked blankets, the room waiting for new life. She smiled softly, the first real smile in days. She realized that she didn't need acknowledgement from anyone else to feel worthy. She didn't need to prove herself to her mother or sister. She had chosen herself, and in that choice she had found strength, clarity, and peace. The fire that once burned for revenge had transformed into determination. A determination to live fully, love deeply, and raise her child in a world where she would never feel invisible again. The journey of betrayal, desire, and restraint had led her here. And Amelia knew with quiet certainty that she would carry this lesson forward. True power comes not from punishing others, but from mastering oneself.